Here at Lake Grove Presbyterian Church, we recognize the complexity of this season and are inviting all of us to reflect on our experience of this complicated and uncertain time.
So welcome to Caring Conversations, episode 21. Pastor Susan, it's good to see you as always. And and we're so interested in this continuing conversation. So in episode 19, we talked about emotional exhaustion during this pandemic and with everything that we're carrying in this season. And we made a list of suggestions to ways to manage our emotional exhaustion. And so today, we're going to be honing in on just one of those suggestions. And so, Susan, would you just lead us in?
You bet. Oh, thank you, Lillian. So one of the thoughts to help us relieve this emotional exhaustion is to reconcile relationships. And you heard me laugh a little bit there, or have kind of a little giggle, because it's put in a list as if it is something that can be checked off a list, when really, oh my goodness, the work of reconciliation is lifelong and really a huge task.
And not only a huge task, but doesn't that seem counterintuitive? Like I feel emotionally exhausted and depleted. And one way to manage my own exhaustion is to seek out reconciliation of a relationship. How is that? How are those congruent? Because to me, initially, as I hear it, they seem like total opposites.
Right. That's such a good insight, and that you say that, because I think it really is. It feels like it would be that way. Like, are you kidding me? I'm already exhausted. How could I go into deeper and, in a sense, harder work? This is where I think we lean into the reality that truth actually does set us free. That it can be, not saying that it is easy, but living in a truth is really helpful. And to be able to just say it, something in all of its starkness and its reality can actually lift a burden from us. So I thought that you and I together could explore maybe even just step one of reconciling a relationship, which I think would be to admit that, boy, it is heavy to carry something that is broken. That it's an invitation to realize it's like we're backpacking, and we've had so many images of what this unique season has been of the pandemic and all of these other crises that have come up upon it. One of them, of course, we've used as a marathon or a journey. And I want to use that similar metaphor, but thinking of you're wearing a backpack, and say we're going backpacking for a few days. How you want to keep a backpack really light, and because it can just become overwhelmingly heavy. And I think one thing, like in our backpack of life, what we have in there might be some rocks. And, if you're watching this, you can see this. If you're listening, I'm holding a little rock. Like, it's helpful to know what is in your backpack and how heavy it is. And so I think the first step is simply being able to take a moment with the Lord and say, what is so emotionally heavy for me? And realizing there might be a broken piece here. Go ahead, Lillian.
Oh, I think that's such a great image, because as I'm imagining, yes, I'm going on this trip, and all I have is my backpack. And if I don't know what's in my backpack, you can imagine yourself like shifting as you're hiking and thinking, gosh, why is this so heavy? Why is this hike so difficult? And actually that increases frustration, right? That not knowing, that unknown.
Yes.
But your invitation then to take your backpack off, maybe sit down, and open your backpack and look and to identify, it's not just that that everything is fine and that I'm going on this hike. Actually, when I open my backpack, I realize there's these heavy items. There's this rock in there. What is that rock doing there?
Right.
It's just being able to, and I think being able to then identify is able to then as you already said, um, just kind of calm the frustration.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why I was feeling so exhausted. And that's why this hike has been so heavy.
Right. Because how helpful is that to even realize? And then you can actually pick up the rock. And here's the invitation today, too, is to pick up the rock. And even if you don't know like how to solve it completely, what is happening there, it's helpful to pick up the rock. And I'm going to invite people to say, to ask, what actually is mine to carry and what's not? And the gift of the faith, Lillian, the gift of our trust in the Lord is that we actually have a companion we walk life with. And so Christ can actually carry things for us and with us. So I was reminded of a few scripture passages when I was preparing for this on reconciliation. One, there's that um, passage in Matthew where Jesus is giving instructions to the disciples and says, if you are going, say you're carrying something, and I'm going to say it's a gift or whatever it might be, you're carrying your rock, you have something to give to the Lord. When you realize that there is actually someone who you have a disagreement with, they're upset with you, there's a relationship to be reconciled, is what I'm saying. It says, put down your gift at the altar, go be reconciled to that person. The only reason I bring that up is because when we're walking with the Lord, they're all of a piece that we're also walking with other people.
Mm.
Reconciled to God, reconciled to people is really a fabric of the same cloth, but not one that we go for perfection because that's not, we realize how impossible that is. Does that mean that if I'm walking with the Lord, all my relationships are right, or I have no heavy rocks in my backpack? No, but it is an invitation to be aware of that, and that when we're walking with God, these things are going to come to light for us. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And I want to go back to what you mentioned, though, about recognizing what is ours,
Yeah.
Carrie, and what is not. I think that is really very pivotal, but also very difficult to do. Because sometimes often in a broken relationship, we end up, the whole thing, the brokenness of the relationship can be consuming. It can be all
Yeah.
consuming. Um, so, do you have any suggestions as to how we can help discern what is ours to carry and what is not, and what,
Right.
is not?
Yeah, I think that is such a good question and really an important thing for us to discern. I actually think we may want to have a whole conversation about that, knowing what is ours, because I think I would just give one thought right now. What can you actually control? And that is the way that you are speaking, the way you're thinking, the way your actions. And so I'm going to pull us back even a moment further and invite you to reflect on that with the Lord first. Because sometimes it's really hard to discern because we can actually feel others people's. We're such amazing creatures that what other people feel, sometimes we take on and we think that it might be ours. And it takes a little discernment in that I think I would invite us to actually just ask that question, even maybe journal it out and write, in this relationship, this is mine. I think it would be taking care of what are your words, what were your actions, and then whatever someone else's was, or whatever they might be demanding of you, asking of you, or maybe they're not even communicating with you, um, is theirs. So I think I'd like to continue that part of the conversation, Lillian, with some even maybe more helpful ways that we can discern what is ours and what is theirs.
And then again, going back to what you were mentioning about the scripture, that our relationship with the Lord and our relationship with others are part of the same cloth, and how truthful that is. Absolutely truthful, that we can't separate either of those relationships.
Right. The closer, as we're walking with God, God is going to lead us in truth in all our areas of life. and that will include our relationships. The one thing I want to make sure that I don't leave anyone carrying that's not theirs to carry right now is that you are responsible for mending all of your relationships on your own, right? And there are some relationships that are not meant to be. If there is an abusive one, someone is mistreating you emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually, anyway, that is not that you need to bend to accommodate any of that. This would be the exact opposite. I think that would make you even more further emotionally exhausted. It's actually, um, let's just pull it back up into that first step of being able to realize the weight of carrying things that are broken and bring that weight to the Lord. To be able to evaluate as we're holding that backpack. So maybe in this conversation, what we do right now is we invite ourselves to take the backpack off, set it on the ground, pull everything out. And then let's, Lillian, pick it up within our next one of how do we know what to put back in that backpack to carry, or what we can just simply leave at that campsite, leave in God's hands. It's not ours anymore. Would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, Susan, because you're right. Reconciling relationships is such a complex topic, but and that we could develop and continue to develop. So yeah, let's do that. Let's put a pin in some of the things that we just mentioned here, and just again focus again in realizing, yes, what we're encouraging each other and our listeners to do is to take the backpack off and recognize, hey, there's some things in there that are yours to carry and things that are not yours to carry. And let's do that discerning work before the Lord.
Yes. So one last thought, and that is to help us do that. And again, if you're watching, you can see this. I have a little bowl in front of me here, and so here's an exercise you can do. In we're taking off our backpack and pulling things out, but I'm going to also invite you. So I have this rock as well. I have this rock that I'm holding. I don't know exactly what to do with this broken relationship, right? What steps should I take? But I know I can't keep carrying it, and I can't keep carrying the uncertainty of even not knowing what to do. Mm-hmm. So here's the spiritual exercise I want to invite you to do, and call this a trust bowl. You know what? Any bowl around your house works. Any rock from your yard will work, where you can prayerfully say, Lord, this is what I'm holding, and name whatever it is, but it's heavy for me, and I'm giving it to you. And then put your rock in the bowl, okay? And we're going to trust those things to God, and that God will lead you. God will help you understand what the next steps are. Maybe it's an invitation to talk with someone else further about it too. Of course, I know both Lily and I are happy to talk with anyone, and think of in your friends and your family that it might help. Sometimes those little physical exercises, though, can help us in releasing some of the burden, because it's not holding the whole thing of, yes, it's the burden of what it is, and then it's the burden of trying to figure out how to handle it and the weight of not knowing what to do next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a great exercise. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That way it gives us a visual and tangible practice of how we can discern with the Lord what is ours to carry, what is not ours to carry, in this work of reconciling relationships with each other. So thank you again, Susan, for that. And we look forward to next time when we come together and we continue this conversation about reconciling relationships and how that can help us manage emotional exhaustion. So until then, take care. Bye.
Bye.